trying to achieve here on this job in the first phase is simply take out the old cement pointing that's on the outside, and that has trapped a lot of the moisture in the wall. And it's a lovely, gorgeous day today, but on a wet day, and certainly in winter, this just is a soaked building. And you can just see from the plants that are growing, these plants that shouldn't really be meant to be growing on a vertical. They're more likely seen in sort of shaded woodland and stuff like that. So the fact that they can find a place to grow on this wall tells you just how wet it is. So the process is taking off the cement, which is really, really hard. I mean, it's a very dense, hard material which is holding in that moisture. And then we're going to take that out and we're going to replace it with the original lime mortar that was here back in the Victorian times. So our thinking is, from looking at these old mixes, that they certainly would have used slate dust, because that was everywhere, and probably a pit sand or something, quite a coarse aggregate, mixed then with quicklime. And quicklime is just simply burnt limestone that is kept away from moisture, and as soon as you mix it with water, it has this sort of exothermic reaction. It doubles in size, it expands, it turns into a putty, and then you get this lovely sticky mix, which I've just made 10 minutes ago. So this here is a lovely sticky mix. It's actually really hot still, and what we'll be doing is we'll be actually applying this into the wall quite warm, and that in itself speeds up the reaction. So this is the original bedding mortar that we've pulled out from this wall, and this is hopefully going to be a very close match. And in this mix and in this mix, we haven't done the full analysis yet, but we think we've got wood ash from when they burnt the limestone. They've certainly got limestone in there, or quicklime. They've got sand and they've got slate dust. But primarily the difference is what we call breathability. Now, the mortars don't physically breathe, so what we're talking about is porosity. And that porosity is all about moisture, water vapour being able to escape. So any building in a rainstorm that's been raining for 2 weeks solid, which it does do around here, is going to get a soaking. And a cementitious mortar is going to let water in, just like a lime mortar would as well. But the problem with a cement mortar is it doesn't let the water out again. It acts like a dam, like a reservoir. So then the walls just get wetter and wetter and wetter, and the building starts to suffer. So what we're working on now is looking at, well, if you mix a lime mortar in a totally traditional way, what we call hot mixing, you're slaking the lime on site. Then the porosity is probably 4 times better, at least twice as good as what we call a hydraulic lime, the stuff you buy in builders' merchants. So the performance of a hot mix mortar, like this traditional one here, or what we're making here, is probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times more breathable than a cementitious mortar going in there. And it's all about capillaries. It's all about those tiny little holes in the mortar that allow capillary action, where moisture is sucked out the wall to the fresh air, and the wind just picks it up and takes it away. And it's not, okay, material's important, but then there's also the workmanship. Make sure that you're compacting the mortar and you're pushing it deep in, so that there's no kind of voids and gaps where there's a capillary break. So we want it to wick right through, like poultice out. And then surface area, so if we make a sort of rougher surface on the finished pointing, this has been scraped back, then you've increased the surface area, therefore you've got more area for the moisture to get out and for the wind to pick it up. And adding things like stone dusts, which are porous in themselves. So the actual reason we do it is partly workability, but also we're kind of putting water into the mix, which then comes out, and then it's leaving us with air pockets. The people in the past, they used to put lots of pinnings and gallets, what we call thin stones or terracotta or something, so that the mortar wasn't too full. And therefore, what he's doing there is it means that the mortar won't shrink back and crack. because he's actually bulking it out with a material that obviously can't shrink. But also if you use terracotta, because it in itself is quite porous, it can take on more moisture and then release it again when it stops raining. On the west front, we're going to have to make something a little bit more robust. So we may use a hydraulic lime, which is just a little bit harder, but less breathable. But again, you know, we're pragmatists, and we've, you know, where we can, we want to be as pure as possible. But in some cases, you have to just accept that it's either the elevation is so exposed, and because it's a pointed building, it was never rendered. It's a listed building, so you know, those solutions we don't have. But also the fact that that gable or the bell tower and the west front was rebuilt in a cementitious mortar deep into the wall, so we may as well, you know, we're not going to put cement back, but we're going to put something that's more compatible with it. And also the same on this lower plinth. So you know, the best day to view a building before you start the job is when it's pouring with rain, because you can really see what's going on, and the detailing of the job is really quite smart in the fact that a lot of the building, if the rain is straight down, is missing the building, because you've got good gutters, you've got lead gutters behind, you know, which you can't see, and these string courses and these stones that stick out, they actually throw the water away from the building. So you can probably see it's a slightly darker colour, and that's just organic growth on the stone. So again, what we realise is when the water is pouring down and the rain is hitting the side of the wall, it's like a cascade here. It's like a waterfall. So we're putting back a mortar that can cope with that. And so we're going to do all the way around the lower plinth in a hydraulic lime, and then we're going to match that colour to the traditional mortar that we'll put on the side. You know, by using these very traditional mortars, we need to kind of prove our point, and there has to be evidence, hard evidence, that this is working. So we're doing, along this south side here, we're doing trials of mixes, and we'll leave them here for people to see. Because this is a church and it's a building that, you know, you don't live in, but the construction style and the masonry and everything, materials-wise, is the same as 80% of the buildings around here. And when you have the highest proportion of solid walled buildings in Europe, then identifying a very simple technique of drying the walls out is the key to actually fuel poverty. And that's a big thing, you know. So a wet wall, very simply, is a cold wall. A dry wall is a warm wall. So if we can get the walls dry by using a very simple technique, then we're on to a winner.